folks. Welcome to another edition of the Omnist Hour. Turn down this nice music behind you. You may recognize that as part of the overture to The Barber of Seville. Actually, there's a bunch of Rossini overtures that kind of fit this theme. I just happen to choose this particular one because it's probably familiar to folks who grew up on Bugs Bunny and remember that theme being used as kind of the centerpiece of a slogging match between Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd, which definitely fits this whole topic we're going to talk about today. I hadn't meant on doing another podcast today because I know the YouTube algorithm strongly discourages too many postings of long content in their algorithm, but I'm going to risk it because I don't give a flying flip about YouTube. In fact, we'll probably start with one of the topics that prompted this content today. This is a public service warning about YouTube shadow banning and content censorship. I was following a channel, one of the independent financial information channels that I follow to kind of keep up on what's going on with the banking system and the world economy today, and decided I wanted to make a post to that content. I posted what I wanted to say and happened to go to the same place and look and see if my post actually had gone through, and it hadn't on any device. I thought, that's odd. They must have shadow banned it. Well, it turned up actually about an hour later, after I'd already reposted it from two different places and a different account. The original post showed up, but none of the other repostings showed up because I added more content to them, to my answers, to my commentary, which was banned. At least it hasn't shown up after 2.5 hours. So warning, YouTube is shadow banning and content reviewing, flagging people for content review that can take hours or centuries, I guess, if your post never shows up. This is the kind of bullshit that the Borg hive minds of internet censorship, media censorship, cancel culture, etc., are doing to you actively. And this is a good example of how that can affect you, because if it prevents you from reading comments that might lead you to change your investment strategy, to change what you're doing with your money to protect it, to change how you feel about your country so you don't make a mistake and vote for a foreign agent, well, I guess that might be pretty important. Okay, so let's transition to the topic of the day. I'll show you that article so you can find out for yourself if my comments ever arrived, or if everything's been completely sanitized by the gremlins of Google. Okay, I'm also going to show you another site that prompted this whole subject. Which I'm going to introduce the topic, and then I'm going to start by showing you that site because I want to credit the author, even though I'm not too fond of what he does with he does present a useful reference for further explorations in world mythology, world religion. So I'm going to call this one The Origins of Mythology in the Adversary's Whack-A-Messiah game. Let me explain. One of the things that this particular content creator, and I think I'm going to go over and show you his site right now. By the way, picture in the background, this is two different artist representations of Orion, the Orion legend. If you remember, Orion was the one who, the Orion and Artemis story was he was the one who interrupted her hunting, and with his lovesick wooing, and she set him in the heavens being beset by a beast. And you'll understand this when I tell you about this content creator I'm going to show you. Okay, let's shift over to my browser window. And before I do that, I'm going to credit Steve Van Meter. Interesting channel that talks about financial stuff, isn't afraid to speak out against the hive mind. I'll even show you the comment that I put on. I can't show you the edited versions because I think they've never appeared here. Let's do another refresh and see if my other comments from other accounts ever showed up. Sorry, I'm not going to play your thing through, Steve.
I'm not very big on a trade.
If folks want to have the link, they didn't get to see it up at the top or whatever, let me know. Okay, so here's the comment I posted originally when I first woke up and was listening to this latest post of this content creator. I said, your commentary fails to note the confidence in the dollar is due to the fact that for all its faults, the USA is 1,000,000 times more open and transparent than its rivals intent on killing the dollar. What we need to do is reverse the trend towards Orwellian tyranny in the West and stop trying to copy the CCP's Potemkin Ponzi schemes and dystopian social control. The era of pulling the wool over sheep's eyes to shear them is over, and those making big bets against the dollar system are the worst of the marauding wolf warriors. Hyenas who are chasing after a wounded lion, nipping its heels when they feel safe from its still formidable jaws. That finally showed up, and I got a reply from somebody, and let's see. They even kept my reply to him. He says, tell that to the psychopaths in charge. I said, I am every time I post like this, and force them to either ban me or review every comment I post. The way to defeat a bored hive mind is to overload its security mechanisms, a trick the first Star Trek series tried to show us. Micromanaging almighty tyrants never win in the end. That's how God rigged the game of co-creation so he could spend some time on the golf course after learning good leadership skills himself and teaching the next generation of gods to knack. I later on posted, by the way, sorry for multiple copies of my posts from different devices and accounts here. If the other tests eventually show up, I was investigating potential shadow banning. Apparently my posts here are being flagged for individual review by Google, and there is considerable lag before they show up on any device but the one I posted from. Probably something we should all be aware of as we fight the monster that's trying to pull us into their bored hive mind or drive us all crazy, trying to fight the cognitive dissonance they are building in every echo chamber. I've been fighting shadow banning since the 2016 primaries and have seen every weapon in the beast's arsenal. Now here's another interesting thing that you will discover. If you post very much on YouTube, you will have noticed that sometimes your posts get tagged with, let me turn this down a little bit more. You will notice that you'll get a response to, well, my wife's calling and I gotta tell her I'm busy. baby, I'll call you later. You will notice once in a while that you get a response that says, text me, and points up above to their Google ID. And, you know, people, content creators have complained about that and said, hey, you've got to remove this shit because it's, you know, basically scamming my subscribers and hurting the credibility of my channel, because it'll mimic the idea of the poster, Mr. Steve Van Meter here. And they've been deleted now, but I had, when I posted this, actually every post that I made to this content had one of those phishing tags attached. So somehow that is being used both as a phishing mechanism and as a tag to show their embedded agents within the big tech companies, which they've got it, you know, the CCP and the other people who want to destroy the dollar, that want to destroy the rule of law, that want to bring about one world government, one world Orwellian government, have agents embedded everywhere. In Google, in X, Twitter, in Facebook, all over the place. And that's how they communicate with each other when, you know, we start playing whack-a-mole with them. They find new ways to send messages to their agents, their embedded agents. You got to watch out for that. And this all relates to the subject at hand. Now, another piece of content that I was looking at today is a channel called Crickenford. This is, I believe this is either Irish or Scottish lad who does a channel, and he's an expert. You can see from his bookshelf behind, he studies ancient mythology, ancient traditions, and looks for commonalities and stuff. Now, he's definitely of the academic mindset that says, well, I'm studying it because it helps us understand ancient people. And of course, it's all mythology and it's all nonsense. It's all fairy tales, but it's useful to study and learn something. Okay, this is where he and I part ways. I am going to show you the comment I made on this. One of the things he talks about is how he's concluded that all of mythology, all of oral tradition in tribal societies worldwide, well, she's very persistent. Yeah, babe, I'm in the middle of a podcast. Okay, hurry. What? No, I said I don't need it. I don't know. Probably on the shelf in the other room. I cannot do it right now, okay? I'm right in the middle of a podcast. I will do it as soon as I finish, all right? Okay, I love you, babe. Bye. Okay, well, we have to deal with things like this. All right, sorry, folks. Any rate, this guy concluded that the origin, the myth that seems to go back to the oldest recorded traditions in the Indo-European / Aryan tribes that seem to have spread culture from Central Asia to the rest of the world and come to influence the whole world, not just the cultures we know of. They've influenced the Americas. They've influenced Australia. They've influenced the whole world. And he doesn't really make this connection. He just points it out as an interesting thing to note, and doesn't, connect the dots to the fact that this means that there was civilization before traditional academics say civilization started 6,000 years ago. Okay, so this origin myth he calls the Wild Hunt, and he ties it to the constellation Orion. And basically, the myth is about this super hunter who goes out and does some feat with animals. Now, sometimes it takes the shape of going out and stealing back a herd of cattle. That's common in Celtic traditions. Cattle stealing was a big thing for them. Sometimes it involves like doing a task for Artemis, or doing some tasks for Hera, or one of the other gods. The 12 labors of Hercules ties back to this basic theme. All sorts of myths tie back to this wild hunt origin. Okay, so here's what I commented on his talk about the wild hunt origin. I'm going to read that to you, and then that will set the background for what I'm going to talk about. The real origin of the wild hunt myth is that it is a Borg hive mind adversary psyop, designed to get beast-level savages to help them hunt down Messiah candidates who found their way back to the Gaia experiment system. If you don't understand both the spiritual and alien narratives that bind so many fairy tales and myths, old and new, together, you are likely to fall victim to the mark of the beast in this apocalypso dance contest. This myth is the one that demonized the therianthrope species that tried to help mankind survive after the last big Great Reset, the mass extinction of the Upper Dryas 12,800 years ago that Plato spoke of when he told of Atlantis, like the Birdman, Quetzalcoatl, Papageno, the Fishman, Ioannis, Neptune, and the last non-human Christ, Krishna, Brahma, Chiron, Minotaur, who were all demonized and hunted to extinction by useful idiot humans of previous cult Marxist hive minds, like the one that is trying to unify humanity today under the leadership of the CCP-WEF crony globalist axis of evil and their new Great Reset Build Back Better agenda. The remnants of the Gilgamesh, Enkidu, Heracles, Chiron, mentor-student Gemini stories are now renewed by the dread pirate Roberts pattern introduced by one of the newer books of hidden prophecy, The Princess Bride. The father of a son of a father loop created by the chosen Roberts is going to confuse the mind of the Borg in an endless loop, not knowing whether to play Whack-a-Messiah forward or backward in time, as prophesied in the stories that Star Trek drew on for their Hollywood anti-religious virtue-signaling materialist fantasies. Just watch and see if this post doesn't eventually make sense to you. That's why the zombie woke cult is working so feverishly to cancel culture, rewrite history, inoculate our children against traditional culture, and encourage the demographically existentialist, arch-feminist, man and fetus-hating, and LGBT XYZ, I can be a furry gremlin if I want to, and you have to call me by my correct pronouns. I'll have you fired, flogged, fined, and flattened. Insanities. Not to mention the anarchist shoplifting gangs being promoted on TikTok that grew out of Antifa and BLM communist sleeper cells. The ultimate materialist reality show implementation of the Great Hunt. Okay. So thank you for inspiring this day of revelation, Craig and Ford. I don't think you'll probably ever find your way to my channel, and you'll probably hate it if you do, and that's okay with me. You've done your job. Let's give him a like for that. Come on. There we go. Now, back to regularly scheduled programming. Okay, well, let's talk about this because this is an interesting subject. As you know, Orion is not one of the 12 signs of the zodiac, but is very, very core to our species mythology, because the belt of Orion is a series of stars that are known as the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. Sound familiar? And so many, if you study up on the latest forefront of ancient archaeology, you will find that there is astrological alignment in many of the ancient monuments that matches up quite closely with the positioning of the Pleiades. The three great pyramids of Giza, in fact, are laid out exactly like the arrangement of the three most prominent stars in Orion's belt. And Pleiadian geometry is captured all over the place. Now, the interpretation takes different forms. There are some that see Orion as beating up on this bull, Taurus. There are some that see Orion beating up on Scorpio. But the common theme is that Orion is the human, and whoever he's beating up on, whatever constellation it is the enemy, the non-human. And this is what's been going on. This is a psyop. This is how they got humans to attack the very alien species who tried to help them rebuild after previous resets of this planet, of this star system, which you will remember if you follow my channel. I talk a lot about that planet that used to be where the asteroid belt is, that was hit by some object, another planet, something extraterrestrial, destroyed, knocked out of its orbit, and many of the larger fragments condensed into the Earth and its moon, which have some very interesting alignment patterns that have been noted, along with the alignment patterns that are kind of driven by the zodiac, the precession of the equinoxes, which ancient cultures, pre-linguistic cultures knew about. This symbology is evident in the carvings that we see at Göbekli Tepe, which is right now the oldest accepted civilized building, that just can't be argued against. There's DNA evidence that date it back to this period right after the cataclysm of the Younger Dryas, which folks like Randall Carlson and others are tying to asteroid impacts, and also speculating whether some of similar events might also have been previous civilizations' nuclear extinctions, because the spherules, the microspherules of molten glass and other elements, high temperature melts, are consistent with any sort of an aerial blast, which is what happens when a medium-sized object enters the Earth atmosphere. You may have heard of the Tunguska event. That was the last relatively big one that flattened a large stretch of relatively uninhabited area in Siberia. If that had hit in a more populated area, it would have been big news. And there is growing evidence that those kind of events have happened many, many times in the past. And that's what's driving folks being so worried about, oh, well, we've got to find every asteroid that's approaching the Earth and come up with a strategy for destroying it, which they actually did, and they tried out. And recently in the news discovered that, oh, well, we sent a mission to blow apart this small asteroid, and it actually created fragments that are more dangerous than the asteroid it was in the first place. Now, there's no danger from that. They chose one whose trajectory had no chance of ever intersecting with the Earth, they say. But the point is that we're doing a lot of things thinking we know as much as gods, but not doing a good job of testing our ideas. That was one case where the idea was at least somewhat tested, and they're being honest about the results, that they weren't too positive. And it doesn't take much of an object to enter the Earth's atmosphere to cause basically a mega Hiroshima event. Okay, so where am I going with this? What scientists, materialist scientists, fail to connect is that these events are a continuation of a spiritual war. As I tell you, the story of creation is one about reining in the powers of gods and establishing a system for earning them back responsibly through karma and reincarnation, which even the first creator, God, participates in. That's where all of the Messiah stories come from. And this is why there's this great hunt myth, because every time humanity establishes a new Messiah, all of the old species come back. Some of them are on the side of God, and some of them play more for the adversary. Some are mixed. They have adversary agents in them, kind of like the, that's kind of ties to my omnist symbol, which you see on my channel. Let's see if I can show you that here. Okay, it's behind my little face there. This omnist symbol that's kind of like an extension of the yin-yang. Okay, but you see those little dots. Those dots represent the bad guys hanging out within the good guys. And so, the white and black has a black and white within them, and the red and blue has a blue and red within them. This is controlled opposition. This is the adversary worming their way into every human institution and turning it against itself. And that's what's up with this wild hunt. Because it shows up in different forms and has different adversaries, different heroes, different beasts that we're attacking or defending. This gets me back. Let's look again at some of these potential adversaries. Now, a lot of cults in the past have said, oh, the bull cult is evil. The cult of Mithras, the big event of Mithras, was slaying the cosmic bull. Exactly what is drawn here. And in fact, the symbol of the bull, which is this finger symbol, I almost pulled the wrong one. That is considered a symbol of Satan, of the devil. And the bull, the devil, is drawn with horns, right? The Baphomet is the occult symbol of Satan and is actually worshipped by some Gnostic sects and worshipped by some secret orders too. And what I tell you is that those secret orders have been infiltrated too and turned to serve the adversary. The adversary is trying to confuse and confound the chosen species so that they will become so cognitively dissonant they attack each other and wipe out potential Messiah candidates, because we are all Messiah candidates, big or small. To the extent that we have an idea that contributes to a better creation, a more stable, a more enjoyable creation, we are a Messiah. And everybody's feeling the Messiah pull right now. That's why everybody wants to be a content creator. They want to have some of that glory. They want to be a god of the internet. Some of them more nobly, some of them less nobly, and that's where karma comes in. Ambition is not a bad thing. It's what drives creation. If you didn't want something, if you didn't have an idea of where you want the future to go, you wouldn't have created anything, right? Why would you be any different than God? Okay, so God is a creator, wants to make a future, but is a smart creator and knows that, if I want to make a complicated future, I don't want to have to do everything myself. I might do an experiment in the lab to see if what I have in mind works, at least for long enough before it collapses, that it's a good starting plan, and that's the way creation works. What has to happen in order for creation to happen is you have to have an adversary. And this is the board. The adversary of all creation is hive mind, groupthink, forcing everybody into your mindset. And this is all the cults of one try to do that. And think if only everybody thought like me, everything would be perfect. If everybody found their highest vibe, then we'd all go to the fifth dimension and be happy, happy, happy. If only everybody was a Democrat. If only everybody died and left it to us in Washington or in Beijing or wherever, everything would be perfect. Okay, these people are crazy. They are insane. That's what I talked about in yesterday's talk. This is assimilation madness. When you are about to be assimilated by a hive mind, you go crazy. And you start doing things that are destructive, self-destructive, other destructive, whatever. Thinking that you're doing good. That's how the adversary works. That's how it gets you to commit sins that are going to pull you into its hive mind. Feel so bad, so sorry for yourself that you don't want to be you anymore. And you just want to be one with the all. This is evil. I'm sorry. It's a little bit less evil in the Buddhist mindset of, well, I'm just not going to play the game. I'm not going to have any karma, and then I'm going to spend the rest of my life meditating and getting to my highest vibe, and then I'm going to go to nirvana. Okay, you cannot be incarnated in a physical form without having karma. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to have a place to live. If you want your genes to continue in this virtual reality, if you care about this virtual reality and don't just think, oh, it's all fake, so it doesn't matter what I do, then you are going to face karmic choices. difficult moral and ethical decisions where you're not going to necessarily know what the right answer is, but you have to decide. And even sitting on the fence is a decision. If you're sitting on the fence when the flood comes and wipes out all your neighbors, I'm sorry, and you knew what was coming, but well, I don't want to say anything because somebody might pull me off my fence before the wave comes. You have committed a karmic sin by not speaking out and sharing what you know with your neighbors. Hiding information, little white lies can kill you. Metaphorically, can kill your soul, can incur deep, dark karma that is going to have the souls that you affected by your lack of transparency, your hiding information, your disguising information, your revising information to suit your particular worldview or your religion or your politics or whatever. That's karmic sin. That's tyranny. You are taking advantage of those other souls. How do you understand it? The smallest white lie can turn into a huge, huge problem. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. Everybody who has raised a child knows that there are little white lies we need to tell our children so we don't have to have them deal with things they shouldn't be thinking about yet or dealing with yet. And this is why grooming is a tyranny. It's up to a parent to decide what a child is ready to hear or not until that child is ready to be independent of the parent and not part of their household and dependent upon their financial support. That's the contract between parents and children until the child emancipates themselves under full understanding of what they're doing. Emancipating yourself from your parents because some asshole in your school told you that you were the other gender and, oh, you need to secretly undergo gender transformation therapy. Don't tell your parents, they will try to hurt you and blah, 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 blah. This is nonsense. In the human species, parents have authority for as long as they have earned it. Now, there are definitely reasons to take parents' authority away. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have any child protective services. I'm saying that we need to be open and honest about what we're doing. A child should not be threatened to be taken away from their parent because the parent was wondering why they were on puberty blockers without their consent. I am sick and tired of what is going on in this world, and I'm not going to shut up anymore. I'm not going to be quiet, and you shouldn't be either. If you want to go to a heaven worth attending, you got to speak up. This nonsense has to stop soon, or you are going to find yourself stuck in the worst hive mind you've ever seen. Because that is what they are doing to our species, turning us against each other, instead of being turning us against these different species from different planets and different evolutionary paths, they're turning us against ourselves. That's how desperate the adversary is getting right now. And of course, that's been happening for a long time. People have been having wars, people have been having revolutions and so forth, but it is intensifying. Everybody can see that happening. You've got every echo chamber splitting apart into another one that hates each other. You've got every religion fragmenting into cults that hate each other. You got the Mormons, you got the Seventh-day Adventists, you got the Scientologists, you got the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they all think they know who Jesus is, this incredible plastic Jesus. And the same thing is happening in the Muslim world. And it's even worse if you don't have a religion. You're being pulled every which way by this woke cult that changes on a dime what is politically correct. And will bite off any head, even its favorite celebrities, if the whim of polls shift. And I'm telling you, the winds of polls are shifting. And we don't want to go back to the world that is being defended by Numpty Dumpties like Jordan Peterson. I like a lot of what he's doing in his defense of men and his speaking out against the woke cult. But he is one of many forces that are just trying to pull you back the other way. Back into, well, we got to go back to traditional religion and believe in the Almighty God. There is no Almighty God. There is an Almighty God wannabe that is the adversary. Almighty powers are evil. They are anti-creative, and you got to get that through your numbskull if you want to be one of the survivors of this apocalypse. I'm not sure how much more strongly I need to say that. This is the truth. And I will go to my grave defending that truth. I will be a martyr. I will keep speaking up. I will do everything I can, and I'm probably going to be made a martyr once I'm forced to return to the United States. Because I know I'm on some pretty high-profile lists of people who need to be snuffed if they speak up too much or they get too popular. I'm going to announce to the world right now that I'm going to try a new tack. I just signed away almost $100 to apply for a Twitter Blue, X Blue subscription. And I plan to repost my content there. See how it's received. See if it gets any more attention. See if anyone's willing to listen to the voice of sanity instead of the voice of Hannity or Fanity or Manatee or Panatee or whatever they're selling that doesn't get shadow banned today. We'll see. They haven't accepted my subscription yet. They may reject it and say, oh, you're not welcome to Twitter Blue because you don't have enough followers. You see how this shit works? When holiness is defined by likes, shares, and subscribes, by being accepted by any particular echo chamber of commercial media, which now includes independent media. Yes, you guys, you independent content creators, you're all trying to make a buck off it too. I haven't made a single dime off this channel, and I've only made a few $100s off my books, so don't accuse me of being just like you. I don't change my message for anyone. That's why I don't have any sponsors. That's why people don't share my stuff, because I piss off everybody by telling the truth. Nobody wants to hear the truth if it challenges their little narcissistic image of their virtue signaling self. It's the truth. And you'll find it in every content creator out there. I admit I have an ego. I admit I can be narcissistic. I'm honest. Most of you are not. You hide behind projections and idealized images of who you are. I tell you the God's honest truth that you are not this person sitting in your body. You are going to die from this life. No matter how much you try to extend it, there is no way that you're going to capture your consciousness in a silicon chip and put it into an android and get to live forever. Not going to happen, because you, the you that counts, is your soul. That soul is immortal, but it can be erased by Borg. If you join the ultimate hive mind, the Buddha Borg, I called it yesterday. I created a new way of describing the highest self of the Borg. And remember, I've talked to you before about how through reincarnation and karma, we develop versions of ourselves. Some of the versions are worse than the previous best. Some are better than the previous best. Some of them eventually get thrown out, get recycled into Borg, and some of them have their own lifetime. And if you're an old soul, there's versions of you that are focusing on almost everything you can imagine, because they all tie back to God. God was the first consciousness that reached a level of awareness of being able to create, being able to make thoughts independent of his own. How does that happen? You have to have the first thought is, I am, and then try to define what I am not. This is the beginning of all creation. And it's what every one of us fundamentally wants to know in every incarnation. What's the meaning of our life in the context of the world around us? That's what identity is. And anyone telling you that you can just make up your own identity, I can be a furry because I want to be a furry and you gotta call me by my furry pronouns. They're teaching you nonsense. They're teaching you bullshit. They are coddling you like a baby narcissist. And if you coddle narcissists, they will turn into tyrants. And narcissistic tyrants are in charge of the world today. In every country. Putin, you are a narcissistic tyrant. Xi Jinping, you are a narcissistic tyrant. The CCP is a party of narcissistic tyrants. Not all of them, but the ones that can grasp the most power absolutely are, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If your goal in this incarnation is to get more power, get more influence, you're a narcissist. One that's not honest about it. Noble leaders are honest about what they want and what they're willing to do and what the rules of engagement are. And they don't pursue power overtly for their own ends. They pursue power, yes, but to be to the level that they are able to use that power responsibly. This is the difference between an emperor like Augustus and an emperor like Nero or Caligula. Responsible exercise of power doesn't come to everybody. And especially doesn't come to those who want power the most. If you want to control everything, you want to rule everything, that's a megalomaniac. A good leader doesn't want to control everything, doesn't want to rule everything, wants to find some good lieutenants to delegate to, who they can trust and who they will trust. But verify. Trust but verify is the key to good government. The United States was founded on a lot of good principles, but they lost the sauce when they trusted too much and didn't verify, and let people violate their own constitution that they had sworn to uphold. If you don't uphold your laws, at least until you can change the law legally with an amendment, you are an outlaw. And maybe there's cases where an outlaw might be right. Maybe you need a Robin Hood and you need to just tear the system down. But you better have a solution that doesn't just involve, well, we give us all the power and all the money and we'll do it right. That's nonsense. All of these assholes who are thinking they're Robin Hoods by doing Silk Road things. What's the other one? The Anonymous set. The hackers. The noble hackers. You guys need to have a good soul search and see who you're hurting with what you're doing. If you think you're stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, and you're actually hurting the poor who can't run away from disasters created by your hacks, who didn't escape Maui because the roads were blocked, the schools released their kids before they knew that the parents were there to do anything with them. You've got some really dark karma under you. I don't care if I was just doing my job. I was just doing what I was told. You're responsible. You are responsible, and karma will hold you to account in this apocalypso dance contest. We're not going to go bashing the enemies of Borg like puppet marionettes anymore. If you are that stupid that you could be programmed to kill your friends, kill your own family if you need to preserve yourself, you don't deserve to live in this universe anymore. You don't deserve to incarnate as a human anymore. You have taken the mark of the beast. You need to learn a little bit more by being one of these beasts that attacks everything in sight. And that's how you can tell the difference between the constellations that are your friends, generally, and the constellations that are your enemies or frenemies. The scorpion race, the eight-legged races, arachnids and scorpions, and well, I've talked about that elsewhere, but ask yourself, why aren't there any eight-legged hive minds? Even though the spider Shelob in Lord of the Rings was such a core and key and strong meme. Remember? Frodo had to defeat Shelob, the spider, and then it was just like, easy peasy, all I gotta do is push Gollum out of the way and drop the ring in, and yay, we won! Shelob was the real bad guy. The hive mind-controlling spider. That's the truth embedded in that Lord of the Rings story. That's the truth in the Scorpion and Cancer signs. Now, if you're a Scorpio or a Cancer, I'm not saying you're a bad guy. I am saying that the races that are represented by those constellations are playing for the adversary. And this is how the constellations work. The constellations, some of them, they're the 12 previous chosen species that were assigned to be the guardians of the Gaia experiment. The guardians of the galaxy. Watch that movie again. It might have some special meaning this time. They took it in turn, and this is what the procession of the equinoxes is. They took it in turn to be kind of the chief steward of this experiment and to do what they felt was necessary to bring about the Messiah. The adversary species bring about the Messiah with the idea that if we make things bad enough, it will attract the Messiah. And this is where the whole anti-Messiah sect of the there's a Jewish anti-Messiah, Zebi, something like that. I forget. You can look it up. I talked about it in another segment. But there have been a number of groups that decided, the best way to bring the return of the Messiah is to do evil. A lot of organizations have that at their core. This is what the satanic cult in New York City, Hollywood, Burning Man is all about. That's why they like to party. That's why they're promoting pedophilia, child trafficking, legalization of drugs, irresponsible legalization of psychedelics. These are evil people. They're serving the adversary, thinking they're serving God, and in a way they're sort of right, because that is kind of how you bring the Messiah. Make things bad enough that something's got to give, and that's when the wheels roll around into the position for another Messiah candidate to rise up and say, hey, no more of this shit. The problem is that we haven't had one that woke up and saw the whole big picture. So you see the big picture, you're not really a capital M Messiah, you can only be a little m Messiah. And the little m Messiahs have served great purposes. They invented science. They invented all the laws that now we call chemistry and physics, and which have superseded some of the nonsense that alchemists are still trying to bring back. What, sure, if I just do it right, I can turn things into gold. The King Midas touch? There are people that crazy that they still think they can do that. They think, oh, if only I find the secret of the pyramids, I can have absolute power. How much of the New Age cult, who's excited about exploring history and so forth, is wrapped up in power fantasies? These are not good people. These are crazy people. They may serve the purpose, but they're serving it as part of the adversary. Voluntarily, willingly. That's how God created everything and didn't take away free will. You've got to give up your free will. You're given a chance as a newborn soul to make your own decisions if you choose. But you've got to overcome the programming that you were born with. Most souls don't even know they're being programmed until they feel some cognitive dissonance. I didn't when I was born. I was born into a middle class, fairly well-off family in Idaho. My dad was a nuclear chemist. Mom was a French lady that had escaped from Nazi Germany, not Nazi-occupied France. Fairly normal family, living in, the heart of Mormondom, and having moved to Idaho the year before I was born. They came from California. I don't know. I could go on and on about the interesting things that are pretty mundane until you start putting them all together into why I'm talking to you today. At any rate, a lot of cognitive dissonance got me to the point where I am now. And I had to deal with it without complying, without joining the Borg. It goes all the way back to not complying with my older brothers, my second older brother tried to basically force me into his camp, and my oldest brother, Peter, was a little bit better about it. He just shared what he liked with me, and that's where my love of classical music came from. That's where my love of mythology and history came from. He actually got his degree in classics. I got mine in physics because that was the influence of my dad and some of the better teachers I had that kind of convinced me, you know what, maybe you should go with the flow on this one and focus on science, technology, instead of what you're really passionate about. When I got to grad school at Princeton, I had another moment of cognitive dissonance where I was there focusing in on a little bit of particle physics, high energy physics, and wondering what the hell was I doing there? It was so theoretical, removed from any reality of the human experience that I thought, I'm going to die here. I don't like this. I'm not interested in this. The only thing I liked about being in Princeton was the wonderful library and the other kids in the graduate school, the kind of oddball misfits that I found that got together once a week for the sherry hour and sang together as we were drinking our sherry the song Existential Blues. T-Bone Stankus. That's the one song that I really, really hope will somehow find its way onto Star Maker. That's my wish for this year, is to be able to sing along with that song. I've not found a karaoke version anywhere. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think I've shared enough in this episode. I'm going to try to keep one under an hour this time. And so without further ado, this is Rob Trump with the Omnist Hour. Like, share, subscribe if you want, and participate if you want. I don't really need anything other than that karaoke version of that great song from graduate school days. Or it'd be nice if somebody could solve my problem with my passport, my child support issue, so I didn't have to go back to the U.S. in November. But you know, this is the way karma works. I know better than to fight the system on things like that. I'm not going through another dark night of the soul like I've been through so many times recently in the last 5 years. At any rate, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for giving me what credit you give me. I think you'll find, if you are following my channel, that it will make more and more sense the more you dig into it and the more things happen that are leading up to the conclusion of this event that I've come to refer to as the Apocalypso Dance Contest. I think that's the best term I've come up with. Cosmic Jubilee is another way to view it. The Cosmic Oscars coming up is another way to view it. There's a lot of ways to view the apocalypse that are not nearly as scary as what the book of Revelations has tried to burn into Christian minds, what the Old Testament books of Elijah and Daniel and so forth have tried to burn into the minds of Abrahamic faiths. I think there's wonderful stuff in that book, and I use it all the time. But if you are wrapped up in either one of the fear narratives or the entitlement narratives that have grown out of it, you're playing for the wrong team. Again, Almighty, there's no Almighty God. That's not the real God. That's no God you would ever want to worship. You can see the results of that. Power corrupts absolutely, both above and below. That's why the multiverse was created, so we would have different universes to give to those gods so they wouldn't bother anybody anymore, unless people wanted to be bothered. Because there are masochists. There are many souls that are masochists. They're gluttons for punishment. Pretty much anybody that has their core religion of unconditional love is a masochist. Many, many females are masochists. They like to be abused because then they can virtue signal about, oh, I slave and I cook and I do so much for my husband or for my company or my children, and oh, woe is me, woe is me. I feel good. I'm sorry, that's a narcissist. That's a covert narcissist, a masochistic narcissist. It's another kind of narcissism that we don't talk about too much because that would pull a lot more people into admitting narcissism than most people are comfortable with. At any rate, I'm gonna stop it now because I just went over an hour. Take care, I'll talk to you next time.